Thanks everyone for being here. Um, how far, how was PyCon so far? How's your experience so far? Great, awesome, okay, okay, great. So I think we will also live to that with the session. Yeah, so thanks for joining us again, and we would like to present data platform for social impact in this 30 minutes and the journey behind it. Why is this data platform come in, how this has come in, and how we have built it, and the impact it has had on the NGOs. Before getting into the topic of the today's agenda, we would like to introduce ourselves. I am Devi, uh, and I work as a fractional CXO at Tech4Dev. And Tech4Dev works with NGOs closely in streamlining the tech, data, strategy, and roadmap. Before joining Tech4Dev, I was working as a principal engineer with Atlassian and Razorpay, and made this career switch this year to social sector. I would like to give it to Ishan for introducing himself.
Hello everyone. So my name is Ishan. I'm a software engineer, obviously, because everyone in Bangalore is a software engineer. And I'm not from a coding background, but I've been tinkering with Python for over 7, 8 years now in different areas. And yeah, I've been working on this platform for over 2 years now. And I'm really excited that there's so many people here, even after a very good lunch. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Devi now.
Wow. Thank you, Ishan. So, how many of us believe or agree with the statement data is information and information is power? How many of you full raise with all the energy that we have had with good food? Yes. Almost all of us. Yes. Some, I can see two hands raised from some of them. So great. We also believe, but the reality is slightly different, right? What is that slightly different? We will see actually how data is different from information and what is the journey for data to become information, right? And what are the challenges or the hurdles for data to become information. We would like to take that through a case study, through an NGO called the Apprenticeship Project. We'll call it TAP for short. So this is a very interesting NGO. Uh, all of us know NGOs, right? Non-profits who work with unprivileged in many different areas. Whether it could be education, health, social sanity, civic reforms, you name it, there are NGOs working in India for betterment of social sector. So this is one of them, the Apprentice Project. It's a Pune-based NGO working with underprivileged children, school children, to empower them with 21st century skills. Unlike the traditional school education wherein the child will be made sit for 8 hours and then the teacher teaches, they believe that interactive learning and personalized training can make a difference, and very low touch methods that a curious child can make their progress, right? I think most of us agree with their mission and vision towards learning, maybe. And coding, arts, financial literacy, etc. That's what they actually believe. And interestingly, they actually have adopted technology very early on in their journey, and they have conceived or conceptualized the project through a chat bot, right? And nowadays in India, a lot, even in the slums or any poor communities, also they afford to have a smartphone and a WhatsApp. So there is a chat bot through which the information or the teaching material, not teaching, learning material is disseminated to the children, right? So that the child can interact with the phone, whether it is a video, whether it is a lesson or a quiz to assess. So that's the project. And what it gives them, the child, basically personalized guidance, and video resources, and also motivational support, basically. And this NGO is actually operating at a very big scale. They do this with 34,000 children, interacting them and leveling up their STEM skills, coding skills, etc., etc. Right? And they work in 13 states. And despite of this great vision and um, good mission, they have had their data hurdles. What is it? Um, so as I was saying, they reach out to the children through a chatbot called TabBuddy. Yeah. And through the chatbot, actually, they disseminate the learning resources or teaching resources and get the feedback from the students implicitly, like through quizzes. Through quizzes, maybe how the child is doing, and maybe and how far the child is interacting, how much is the student spending on a particular learning resource. All of this is data, right? And through the chatbot, it is there. They have all the data of engagement levels, their curiosity, their learning levels, and all. And they also have data in CRM on Frappe, one of the open source tool that many of you might have heard of, to arrange or organize the teachers' data, students' data, their classes, which school they go to, which district or state they belong to. All of this organizational information, right? The program organizers need to know this data to actually provide and plan their beneficiaries, right? But before the data platform, the Dalgo which we have built has come into picture, what was happening is, because they did not have tech resources in-house, they were processing all this information. They were pulling all this information from chatbots, from CRM. They would import it into CSVs or sheets, and then they would export it onto Google Sheets, and they would manually analyze, clean it up first. Many of you, maybe if you have been into data, raw data, you should clean it up first, and then maybe anonymize it if you have personal data of child or student, etc., etc., right? The phone numbers, the child name will be removed, data needs to be anonymized, and then structured. These two different sources or two different data sets that are from chatbot and CRM needs to be joined, transformed into structured data. And this was all being done manually, right? And being an NGO, there might be one or two people who know Excel, even to be able to do that in an Excel sheet, right? To be able to put in formulas, etc. And this was very tedious, and they could not scale up. Though they had volunteers, though they had the tech chatbot, they could not scale up because they did not know, they did not have the information to decide whether to, I mean, for the leadership team, it was a decision process that do they want to actually go broad, reach more schools, more states, more districts, or should they actually look at more verticals, maybe add one more vertical on math, maybe or more districts, or more depth in one of the areas that they're already covering. All this information, I mean, for decision makers, information is very crucial, and they did not have, despite having the raw data. And let's say one of us are a course designer in TAP, right? I would want to know, as a course designer, how the children actually perceiving it, or how much they are engaged with, which are the lessons that I need to actually revamp and redo it. And they also did not have that kind of data. So despite having the information, data, raw data, they did not have information to make any kind of decisions. From the leadership to the volunteers, they did not have data. But this was before the data platform that we have come up with. Now, typically in any organization, whether it is an NGO or a corporate, right? Typical data journey, there would be a lot of data sources, whether it is CRM, ZRP systems, sales data, consumer reviews, click rates. You might imagine, I mean, the world is swamped with data. They have data from a lot of various sources. And these are typically put in data lake, and then which is totally unstructured. And then the structure is made through the data pipelines, right? The data flows from the data lake, and somebody has to actually build those data pipelines and streamline the transformations, whether it is anonymization, deduplication, any kinds of transformations that you can think of. All that has to be put into the data pipelines and to be able to consolidate and transform. So consolidation is the first step wherein you want to see the data together. It's not from silos coming from two different, I mean, n number of data sources, one in that Excel sheet, one in the CSV sheet. We don't want that, right? Some information in Salesforce. We can't really analyze and have a holistic picture. So data consolidation is the first step, and transformation. This is how typically the data journeys look like. And for it to happen, to come into a reality, either they should have an engineering team in-house to be able to set up and maintain this data pipelines, either an engineering team or tech platforms, right? And both of these are very, very, very expensive. We all know how expensive engineering talent is to find and to actually maintain, right? And NGOs typically work on low budgets, and they cannot afford that. So that's where Dalgo has come in. Dalgo is the data platform bridging the gap between the raw data and the information for NGOs. And what does it do? It, as we talked about the challenge, it consolidates data from multiple sources into the data warehouse. It also helps them do transformations. Ishan will take us through how it actually enables these features. And also the shiny features like monitoring the data pipelines, because they have to be reliable for us to have fresh data at the end of the day, right? Monitoring data pipelines and also data quality. Is this correct? Is the data correct? Is this cohesive? Is this complete? They can actually define their data quality measures and can have monitoring. And this is built for non-technical users. There might be data platforms, and there are data platforms for technical users, like AWS Glue, Databricks. We all know a lot of data engineering platforms, right? But not, I mean, everything, all of those need tech, and this is built for non-tech users. And above all, it's open source and affordable for NGOs. It also, I mean, we also have, Dalgo also has add-on Superset. If you have heard of, it's an open source data exploration and visualization tool. So the prepared data in Dalgo can be visualized on Superset. Right? Now that we know a little bit of what Dalgo does, let's quickly have a look at the architecture. Yeah, so the API of Dalgo is powered by Django. I'm sure that all of you would know Django, the web framework. And Celery, we use it for offloading all our asynchronous tasks. And Redis acts as a cache and also the backend for Celery. And Postgres we use, we use to store all the metadata of the NGOs, like what are the NGOs, who are their users, the user information of the NGOs, and their runs, the pipeline runs basically of transformations or ingestions, right? And we have an AI service powering one of our wonderful features. Ishan will again talk about it. And let's look at the ELT layer. Extract, load, and transform. This is the heavy lifting, right? I mean, from different sources, we want to do extraction of the data, and then load it, and then transform it so that it is processed data available for AI, ML applications, or data visualizations, or anything else that the organization wants to. And yeah, as you can see in the data collection box, um, the NGOs also use a lot of varieties of tools, ranging from Google Forms kind of things, survey tools, Google Forms to Copo Toolbox, Comcare. There are softwares actually work without internet or without stable internet in NGO space. It could be just a CSV or an Excel sheet sitting on their drive or disk, right? The information or the data could be in files or documents, and CRM, ERP systems like Frappe or Salesforce, like what we have seen in TAP, right? And chatbots. A lot of NGOs actually who are doing the groundwork, whether it is health workers or doing work with children in schools or after schools, they have chatbots to communicate with their beneficiaries, right? all this all these need to be ingested into the org's data warehouse. And how do we do that? We use Airbyte, again a well-known Python package, and as a tool, it has like 300 plus connectors. It's a beautiful ecosystem with 300 data connectors, and 300 plus data sources and data destinations. So you name it, whether it is a CSV or a Google Sheet or Comcare or a database, anything, it has a connector. So we pull the data from the data collection tool and put it in the data warehouse. That's the first step. And then what do we do? What do we need to do? I mean, raw data is not really useful, right? We need to clean up and do all those transformations, joins, merges, whatever we name it, to make it prepared data ready for visualizations or any other applications. For that, we use DBT, again, another well-known open source Python package, um, to transform the data. And I think many of you will agree that DBT has revolutionized working with data in terms of bringing all the great software engineering methodologies, right? Like modularity, reusability, testability, reliability, all of that was non-existent almost in the SQL world. Um, if there are any data engineering background people around, they would agree, right? So we use DBT for that, and the DBT logic is again stored in the org's GitHub. And above all, I mean, along with all of these, we are not working with only one single NGO, right? We work with, or Dalgo is handling a lot of NGOs pipelines. And how do we orchestrate that? So that it is actually low on or equally spread on the infrastructure that we use. For that, we use again another Python backed package and tool called Prefect for orchestration. And the best part is all this data, the organization's data is sitting in the org's data warehouse. Dalgo does not contain even one data point of the organization. And why is that? Any guesses? Yeah, data security and compliance reasons, right? We don't want to have the liability of holding their data, and they don't want to share their beneficiary data with any other organizations. So that's the architecture, and we are very glad that we have completed 1 year, and we could onboard a lot of NGOs to see impact, and we could build a lot of NGO-centric features, not just the base. This is the base, right? And Ishan will take us through the NGO-centric features that Dalgo has, actually, which enable NGO people from NGOs to deal with their data themselves. Over to Ishan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Devi, for setting the context. So let me take you all, let's take a closer look. I don't have any code to share, but I'll take you through some like LLD, like design things behind the features that we have built out. Um, so the first one is what we like to call UI for transformation. I think by the name it's pretty self-explanatory. So the NGO space, they have their monitoring evaluation team that works on transformation, basically the transformation layer. but they're not so good at SQL. They spend a lot of time tinkering with that, but they're not data engineers, right? So we cannot expect them to be good at SQL, right? And you need SQL to do all the transformation work. So what we have done is we have abstracted that part out. So now imagine them spending a few seconds to build out the transformation layer, and then they can just focus on their program altogether, right? So what we have done is we have created, I know the picture might not be so visible, but through a nice UI, they can drag, drop, click, and they can build out the transformation layer in like a few seconds. And then, so if you see the green boxes, I don't know if it's visible, but the green boxes are your data models. And we support all the standard SQL operations like joins, cast, merge, group by filter, anything you want. And that way they can build out the layer. And on the bottom pane, they'll be able to see that data. So as and when you're building a transformation layer, you can visualize, okay, if I'm dropping a column or if I'm merging two tables, am I seeing all the data correctly or not, right? That's the idea. And on the left hand side is your data warehouse. So whatever tables are there in your warehouse, you can build something on top of that. You can merge any number of tables you want. So now imagine like, and last thing is the top right corner, you see like a run button. So basically now when you press run, your data models are actually materialized into tables in your warehouse, and you can again use them to build further models and tables, right? So imagine this feature, I think this would save NGOs so much time, and now they can just focus on their program and their work, worrying about the SQL part of it. And the idea of this is the way we have built this is warehouse agnostic. So whether it's a Postgres or a BigQuery, we didn't have to do a lot of work, and I'll tell you why. So behind the scenes, now as Devi also mentioned that our transformation layer is in DBT. So now our problem statement was, if you're building a data model on the UI, how do we generate that DBT code, right? And we tried to search for a package that could do that for us, like any Python open source one, but we couldn't find one. So we went out and built one. It's a standalone package, and currently there's only one version out for it. And the logic behind that is something like this. So let's say you have a very simple transformation pipeline where you start with a table, drop a column, rename, let's say, two more columns, materialize the final table as table 2. What we do behind the scene is the package would generate a DBT code, which is like just a DBT model, and we're using CTEs. So it's like more of a greedy approach. It might not be optimized to the like it might not be fully optimized, but since this is the first version, we went out with this. So you can see that there are two CTEs for two operations here, and you can easily write a single CT or a single select statement to do these two operations also. But yeah, the idea was there to start at some place. So we are going to work on optimizing that also. So yeah, this was the first feature. We call like to call it UI for transformation. Um, the next is data statistics. Let me show you how it looks like. So the idea for this is the canvas that you saw in the previous feature. Can NGOs get a quick snapshot of some statistics on their tables? So our tables might have 10 to 12 columns of different data types, integer, string, time, date type, right? Can we give them a quick data statistics or a data distribution? So this is how the feature looks like. So for string columns, it will give you the distribution. For integer column, it will give you like mean, median, mode, minimum, maximum, etc. For a date time column, it will give you like a time distribution based on like last 5 months, last year, etc. I couldn't show the other ones, but feel free to catch me after this and I can show you. And now here you see, for example, you also have basic things like how many distinct values are there in your column in that table, how many null values are there. So as and when you're building a layer, you can easily figure out, oh, if this column had like thousands of nulls, okay, there's something wrong with my either data model or the data collection that we're doing, right? Uh, and just to now tell you how this feature works, this is again might be a little semi optimized. So for one table, let's say you have 10 columns. So what we do is we fire 10 queries to fetch the distribution, because each column has a different distribution, right? one query per column. So if there are 10 columns, you will have 10 queries running. One big common query to fetch all the counts, the count distinct, count null, etc. Right? And then what we we make use of Redis logs. This is why, because let's say there are two people in the same organization trying to fetch data statistics of the same table. We don't want to bombard their warehouse with so many queries, right? So the person who comes first acquires the log, and the other one has to wait till the query is finished running. And yeah, so we have used SQL Alchemy, expression and function. I know this is a very famous package in Python. It is the database connection engine also, but it has something called expression and functions through which we built out our queries. So again, we didn't have to worry whether the warehouse was BigQuery or Postgres. It's warehouse agnostic. And SQL Alchemy also allows you to set the connection pool size, so that we don't want to open like thousands of connection to the warehouse. Otherwise, it will again bombard the warehouse. And last thing, what we do is we cache this query data statistics results, so that it's easier, because it takes some time to run all those queries, compute all those graphs, etc. And for caching, again, we use Redis. So I think based on these two features, I think what we have tried to do is make their life super easy when they're trying to figure out their insights and stats, program statistics. Okay, so the next feature, I think we have been hearing a lot of LLMs, AI stuff throughout our like day-to-day life and also in this conference. So this is the one of the feature that we have built out. Uh, as the name suggests, it summarizes logs. So we have like verbose logs from all the open source tools that we use in our ELT stack. And obviously, the people in this ecosystem cannot make a single sense out of it. So how do you make sure that they are able to understand where their pipeline failed and mostly correct their layer and then rerun their pipeline? So what we do is we ask LLMs very two basic things, two prompts to them, summarize the primary error that occurs in this run and what steps can I take to solve the error you identified. And I think this has worked very nice because the logs are so verbose, like they are like very human readable logs. And this is just an example that we ran. It was able to figure out there's a column missing, and it is now recommending you to go and change your SQL query to remove that column and then make sure and rerun it again. So this is one of that feature. I think the last one. Okay, the last one is what we like to call custom source connectors. So as Devi has mentioned, that people use in the system ecosystem use a lot of chatbots, survey tools, and connectors for these are not available out there in the famous cloud solutions like AWS, Glue, etc. And what we have done is we have tried to build connectors so that they can pull data out of these tools ourselves. And we're using Airbytes, which is again an open source tool, and its connector development kit. So I think we are almost there. So I'll just end this. Just to tie the loop that Devi started with the apprentice project, these are some of the things that Dalgo helped them with. You saw how and why. Yeah, so I think that's the end of the talk. I mean, I don't know if you have time to take questions, but you can feel free to catch us.
Thank you, Ishan. We have time for a couple of questions. Anyone? Please use the mic.
Yeah, I wanted to know like why is it specific for NGOs because this has a wider usage, I believe.
So our idea was like we don't mind if other people are using, but our focus is the social impact space, because I think for corporates there are humongous solutions out there. They have the capacity, they have the resources to use them. So it's since it's open source, anyone can use it.
Okay.
I had a question in terms of what next. Like, is this open source? Can we contribute to it? And yeah.
Yes, that's why I moved to the slide. So yes, we welcome contributors. Definitely, you can contribute if you're interested. Our stack is, as you saw, Python, Django, and we have a Next.js frontend. And yeah, I mean, these are the QR codes to our code repos. Also, the slides are there if you want to check it out. Yeah.
And just to add on, this is a way for techies to contribute to social space. through programming and technology that we are good at. So feel free to join us on Discord or check out our page.